Okay, so today we're going to dive into a really interesting field.
Yeah.
It's all about oil and pipelines,
Mm-hmm.
but not in the way you might think.
Right.
We're not talking about like the environmental impacts or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're talking about how you can land a job as a gauger.
Yes.
These are the folks that make sure those pipelines are flowing with like top quality oil.
Exactly.
And it's a super important job.
Absolutely.
And it can be a really rewarding career too.
It really can, and it's something that a lot of people don't think about. You know, when we think about the oil and gas industry, they
Yeah.
think about, the drilling and the exploration,
Yeah.
but there's this whole other side of it that's
Mhm.
all about quality control
Right.
and making sure that those pipelines are operating safely and efficiently.
And that's where gaugers come in.
Exactly.
They're like the unsung heroes of the oil and gas industry
I like that, the unsung heroes.
because they're the ones who are making sure that we
Yeah.
have the energy we need.
Right.
But they're also doing it in a way that's safe and responsible.
Yes, and they're the ones that are, really on the front lines
Yeah.
of making sure that the oil that we're using is up to par.
Exactly.
So it's a really critical role.
So if you're thinking about a career as a gauger,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're just curious about what they do,
Yeah.
then you're in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Because today we're going to be talking all about what it takes to be a successful gauger.
Absolutely.
And we've got some great insights to share with you
Yes, we do.
from RoleCatcher's career and interview guides.
Yeah, these guides are fantastic.
Yeah.
Packed with really useful information.
Yeah, so if you're ready to dive in, let's get started.
Let's do it.
So let's say I'm like getting ready for my first gauger interview.
Okay.
What's a question that I'm almost guaranteed to get asked?
You will definitely be asked, what inspired you to pursue a career as a gauger?
It seems like kind of a simple question,
Right.
but I bet it reveals a lot about the candidate.
It does. It reveals a lot about their motivations, their understanding of the field,
Okay.
and whether they've really thought about what it means to be a gauger.
So it's like they're trying to see if you just stumbled upon the job posting online or
Yeah.
if you like have a genuine interest in the field.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some tips for answering this question effectively?
Well, the most important thing is to be authentic.
Okay.
Don't just give a generic answer like, oh, I'm good with numbers, or I like working with my hands. Instead, think about what really drew you to this field.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a fascination with how things work,
Okay.
a desire to be a part of something important, or
Yeah.
maybe a family member who worked in the industry inspired you?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, be genuine and let your passion shine through.
So it's about telling your story
Exactly.
and connecting it to the role.
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
And RoleCatcher can actually help you with this part of the process.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have this really cool feature where they give you prompts and questions to help you uncover those authentic motivations. Oh, wow. That's really helpful.
Yeah, because sometimes it can be hard to articulate those things.
Right.
But RoleCatcher kind of guides you through it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then they also have a ton of sample interview questions,
Okay.
so you can practice answering them.
So it's like having a mock interview with a career coach.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so if you're feeling nervous about the interview process, RoleCatcher can definitely help you feel more prepared and confident.
That's great to know.
Yeah, and it's not just about giving you the right answers.
Right.
It's about helping you understand what interviewers are really looking for
Okay.
and how to present yourself in the best possible light.
So it's like they're helping you to put your best foot forward.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of authenticity,
Right.
telling your story,
Mm-hmm.
but let's get real for a second.
Good.
The technical stuff can be intimidating,
It can.
especially in a field like this.
Yeah. So what's a question that really throws candidates off?
One that often comes up is, describe a time you had to troubleshoot a problem with a measurement instrument.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's getting into the nitty-gritty.
It is, and it's designed to see how you think on your feet
Okay.
and how you apply your technical knowledge to real-world situations.
So it's not enough to just memorize the textbook.
Right.
You have to know how to use that knowledge
Exactly.
in a practical way.
Yes, and to explain it clearly
Okay.
to someone who may not have the same technical background as you.
So how much detail should I give when I'm answering this type of question?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You don't want to bore the interviewer with too much technical jargon,
Right.
but you also don't want to be too vague.
Right.
So it's all about finding the right balance.
No.
And that's something that RoleCatcher can actually help you with as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have this AI-powered feedback system
Okay.
that analyzes your responses and tells you if you're being too technical or
Alright.
too vague. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like having a personal editor for your interview answers.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's like they're helping you to craft the perfect response.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the technical side of things, but what about the behavioral questions?
Oh, yeah, those are important too.
Because it's not just about what you know.
Right.
It's about how you handle yourself in different situations.
Exactly.
So what's a common behavioral question that comes up in Gager interviews?
How do you handle a high-pressure work environment is a big one.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because let's face it, the oil and gas industry can be pretty demanding.
Yeah.
There are tight deadlines, safety is paramount,
Yeah.
and things don't always go according to plan.
Yeah, so they want to know that you can handle the heat
Exactly.
and still make good decisions.
Yes.
So what are some strategies for answering this question effectively?
Well, the STAR method is always a good one to use.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result.
Okay.
And it basically helps you to structure your answer in a way that's clear and concise.
Okay, so tell me more about how it works.
Sure. So you start by describing the situation. Then you talk about the task that you had to complete,
Okay.
the action that you took, and finally the result of your actions.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a really effective way to answer behavioral questions because it provides a concrete example
Right.
of how you've handled a similar situation in the past.
So it's not just you saying, oh, I'm a hard worker or I'm good under pressure.
Right.
You're actually giving them proof.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like that.
Yeah, and RoleCatcher can help you with this too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a whole section on the STAR method.
Oh.
And they give you examples of how to use it to answer different types of interview questions.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you can really practice and perfect your answers.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the STAR method, but are there any other tips for answering behavioral questions effectively?
Yeah, I would say another important thing is to be honest.
Okay.
Don't try to make yourself sound like something you're not.
Right.
Because interviewers can see right through that.
Right.
So just be yourself
Right.
and be honest about your experiences.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a perfect example to share,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Okay.
Just be upfront about it
Okay.
and talk about what you learned from the experience.
Okay, so it's not always about having the perfect answer.
Right.
It's about being able to reflect on your experiences
Exactly.
and learn from them.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
but I think the main takeaway is that preparation is key
Absolutely.
if you want to ace that Gager interview.
Yes. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
There are a lot of resources out there, like RoleCatcher,
Yeah.
that can help you put your best foot forward.
Absolutely.
So take advantage of them.
Great advice.
Thank you.
And use the resources that you have available.
Exactly.
Like, don't be afraid to reach out to people who are already working in the field.
Yes, networking is so important.
Yeah.
You know, reach out to people on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
attend industry events.
Yeah.
Just put yourself out there
Okay.
and talk to as many people as you can.
So like informational interviews are your friend.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the more you know about the industry,
Yeah.
the better prepared you'll be for the interview process,
Makes sense.
and the more likely you are to land that dream job.
I like it.
Yeah.
So speaking of the interview process,
Yes.
let's talk about some more of those tricky interview questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Because we want to make sure that our listeners are ready for anything.
Absolutely.
So what's another question that often trips people up?
Can you describe a time you had to make a difficult decision in your work? Is a classic.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one.
It is.
Because it's not always easy to talk about those situations.
Right. Especially in an interview.
Yeah, you don't want to sound like you're indecisive.
Right.
Or that you make bad decisions.
Right.
But you also don't want to shy away from the question.
Right.
Because it's a chance for you to show that you can handle pressure.
Okay.
And that you can make tough calls when you need to.
So how do you find that balance?
Well, I think the key is to choose a scenario that demonstrates your thought process.
Okay.
So don't just focus on the outcome of the decision.
Right.
Talk about how you got there. What factors did you consider?
Okay.
Who did you consult with? And how did you ultimately arrive at your decision?
So it's about showing that you have a process
Exactly.
and that you're not just making decisions on a whim.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And it's also okay to talk about a time when you made a mistake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as long as you can show what you learned from it.
Okay.
Because everyone makes mistakes.
Right.
But it's how you handle those mistakes that really matters. So it's about showing that you're willing to learn and grow.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some other questions that candidates should be prepared for
Let's see.
in a Gager interview?
Oh, yeah, in a Gager interview, right?
Yeah.
What is your experience working with hazardous materials? Is a common one.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because safety is such a big part of the job.
Hmm.
So they want to know that you understand the risks
Right.
and that you're committed to following safety protocols.
Okay.
So how do you answer that one?
If you don't have a ton of experience
Yeah.
working with hazardous materials.
Well, I think the most important thing is to be honest.
Okay.
If you've never worked with hazardous materials before,
Yeah.
then just say that.
Okay.
But be sure to emphasize your willingness to learn
Okay.
and your commitment to safety.
Mm-hmm.
You can also talk about any safety training that you've had in the past,
Okay.
even if it wasn't specifically related to hazardous materials.
So it's about showing that you take safety seriously.
Exactly.
And that you're willing to follow procedures.
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and you can also mention any certifications that you have
Okay.
that are relevant to the role.
So if you've got those safety certifications,
Mm-hmm.
definitely highlight those.
Absolutely.
Okay. What else?
Let's see. How do you handle conflicts with coworkers or supervisors? Is another one that often comes up.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, because let's be real, conflict is inevitable in any workplace.
Right.
So they want to know that you can handle it in a professional and constructive way.
So how do you answer this one without throwing your past coworkers under the bus?
Right. Well, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't want to badmouth anyone.
Right.
But you also want to be honest about your experiences.
Right.
So I think the best approach is to focus on the situation itself
Okay.
rather than the people involved. So
Mm.
for example, instead of saying, my coworker was lazy and wouldn't do their work, you could say, there was a time when I had to work with a team member who had a different work style than I did.
Right.
And it was challenging at times, but we were able to find a way to work together effectively.
So it's about focusing on the solution
Exactly.
rather than the problem.
Right. And it's also about showing that you can be diplomatic
Mm.
and that you can find common ground with people who are different from you.
Those are important skills in any workplace.
Absolutely.
But especially in a field like this where you're often working with a diverse group of people.
Exactly.
Okay, what else you got for me?
What are your salary expectations? It's always a fun one.
Oh, yeah, that one can be tricky.
It can be because you don't want to lowball yourself,
No.
but you also don't want to price yourself out of the job.
Right. So what's the best way to handle that one?
Well, I think the key is to do your research beforehand.
Okay.
So look at websites like Glassdoor and Salary.com to get an idea of what the average salary is for gaugers in your area. And then you can use that information to come up with a salary range that you're comfortable with.
So don't just go in there blind.
Right, exactly.
Do your homework.
Yes.
Know what you're worth.
Exactly.
And then be prepared to negotiate.
Absolutely.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of tough interview questions.
We have.
But I think the most important thing to remember is to be yourself.
Absolutely.
To be authentic and
Yeah.
be confident.
Right.
And to be prepared.
Those are the keys to success.
I like it.
Yeah.
And know your worth.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly. Know your worth.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of like the tough questions
Yeah.
that you might get in a gauger interview.
Mm.
But what about the end of the interview?
Oh, yeah.
When they turn it over to you
Right.
and they say like, do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
What do you do?
That's such a good question because it can be really easy to just kind of freeze up in that moment
Right.
and be like, no, I think I'm good. But it's so important to have some questions prepared
Okay.
because it shows that you're curious,
Mm-hmm.
that you're engaged,
Right.
and that you've been paying attention.
It's like your last chance to make a good impression.
Exactly.
Okay.
So don't waste it.
So what are some good questions that you can ask?
Well, one thing you can ask about is the company culture.
Okay.
You know, like what's it like to work there?
Mm-hmm.
What are the values of the company?
Okay.
What are the opportunities for growth and development?
So it's like showing that you're thinking long term,
Exactly.
that you're not just looking for a job.
Right.
You're looking for a career.
Exactly.
Okay. What else?
You can also ask about the team that you would be working with.
Okay.
You know, like what are their backgrounds? What are their strengths?
Okay.
What are some of the challenges that the team is facing?
So it's like showing that you're a team player,
Yes.
that you're interested in collaborating.
Exactly.
All right.
And that you're ready to hit the ground running.
I like it. Yeah. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground today
We have.
about how to ace that gauger interview.
Yes.
But before we wrap things up, is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with?
You know, I think the most important thing is to just relax and be yourself.
Okay.
You know, the interview process can be nerve-wracking,
Yeah.
but the more you can relax and be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the better you'll come across.
Right.
And remember The interviewers want you to succeed.
Okay.
They're not trying to trip you up.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to get to know you and see if you're a good fit for the role.
Okay.
So just relax.
Mm-hmm.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
And you'll do great.
Great advice. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, I think that's going to do it for today's deep dive.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.